local councils are going to need to get local residents' approval for low traffic neighbourhoods, the LTNs we've heard so much about, and those 20-mile-per-hour zones that have cropped up everywhere, including main roads, or they face being stripped of powers to fine motorists. Of course, how they're making most of their money these days. This is under new government guidelines published yesterday. Well, joining me now to discuss this is Alan Miller. He's co-founder of the Together Declaration, who's been campaigning on these issues. Good morning to you, Alan.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you so much for joining us. Well, this is certainly a big victory, isn't it? We saw all these LTNs, as they're known, cropping up, particularly during the beginning of lockdown in the spring of 2020. We're like, oh, isn't this lovely? We're all cycling around and there are lovely big wooden boxes full of flowers blocking off streets. Isn't this nice? The kids can play, etc. And then people had to get back to work and people had to have deliveries and people wanted to get about their major towns and cities and went, actually, could you not? I'd like to be able to get around my local streets. And councils were going, well, no, this is all about the environment and cyclists and pedestrians. But it does feel to me like we are winning back the right to, frankly, move along our streets.
Well, Julia, it's a strange world where it's a victory to have the freedom of mobility.
Yeah.
But common sense and reasonable argument is winning in various areas. We've seen that Edinburgh Council has given up one of its LTNs, that Warrington Council has got rid of them. Newcastle, quite rightly, saw the trial. People were against it and got rid of them. But others are drilling down. Islington's drilling down. Tower. We've got a situation where in Hackney, they're saying sorry to increase by 5% the council tax, but we're really looking after the vulnerable, like the disabled and everything. But they don't, of course, mention all their low traffic neighbourhoods. Haringey making millions of pounds within just a couple of months. We know that over 2 billion was spent by the government on this, but quite rightly, your viewers and many other viewers and supporters of Together lobbied Mark Harper, lobbied the Department of Transport, and they've listened. And they stopped funding active travel, which was the term, like livable streets for low traffic neighbourhoods, which is really bollards and cameras and surveillance. So quite rightly, they did that. And now this report is seeing how emergency services are being slowed down, how it's having a dramatic impact on local neighbourhoods and surrounding areas. There weren't that many respondents, interestingly. A lot of people feel that they've got to the point where they're not being listened to with so-called consultations.
Yeah. No, but that's the thing, isn't it? You think, well, are they ever going to listen? We saw with the ULEZ consultation in London, when basically a whole load of people who put in their views against it were just completely discounted by the London mayor. But this is the interesting thing, even when they do have these things, and I'm one of those people that definitely always responds to anything that comes in or local consultation, because I know that most people don't. And what they do is they rally the local cycling group and the whatever, and they make sure that they all put all their submissions in, and they go, look at this overwhelming support. Well, it turns out that the average response to a council's planning consultation on a low traffic neighbourhood plan is just 13% of residents. So even if people are not bothered by them, they ain't keen on them. They're not going, oh, what a great idea. Please do this. I can't wait for you to, cut off my ability to drive down my own road. We had it in our local area, one-way system, relatively quiet streets anyway, near between two main streets, and they just did a consultation saying we're going to make this one street like no vehicles, and everyone just went, what are you talking about? No one living in the street had asked for it. Where did they get these ideas from? Who did they think wants this?
Well, it's a very good question. Where they're getting their ideas from is the combination of the idea of net zero and clean air, which is presented. It disregards the fact that air's been cleaner than it ever has been before. And on all international metrics, London and the UK is far better than most others in Europe and its peers. And what it does is there's a few very wealthy green billionaires that are set on funding these so-called grassroots activists, those cycling campaigns and others, alongside people like Sadiq Khan, who's the chair of C40 Cities, and some others in local authorities that want to circumvent the public sphere. They want to push this agenda. It has not been debated, a cost-benefit analysis, thoroughly looked at and evaluated, and it's been imposed with all sorts of measures that include fines, restrictions, and threats and nudges. And frankly, the public are not happy about it. We're going to keep challenging it. Together, we've done reports on it. We're going to be in Scotland at the end of this month for a Together rally, both in Glasgow and Aberdeen, where low emission zones are being implemented. We've seen that in all of these areas with these schemes, even when they've been implemented, the net increase. There's been a decrease in cycling and walking, ironically, even though they spend more money on it. And there has been no improvement. In actual fact, in Glasgow, the actual pollution went up when these things were put in place. The thing is, what we talk about, people really want. They want good services. They want to be able to see a GP. They want good public transport, particularly in areas unlike central London, where it isn't often and consistent. They want it affordable. And we want to be able to have the ability to move around, see our family and friends, to work, to be able to do that without being constantly fined, harassed, limited
and
and
just
restricted.
constantly seen as a cash cow, and motorists really do feel that way. I mean, this is the bizarre thing. It's like, they're bringing things like 20-mile-per-hour zones. Again, my local high street, it's a reg route. I mean, it's like you're not allowed to park along most of it, and they've brought it in as a 20-mile-per-hour zone. I mean, was there an issue on this road beforehand? No issue. But it means that loads of people, because it's actually weirdly hard to drive along this sort of massive big road at 20 miles per hour, because people are so used to driving at 30 that they're making a load of money. And this is the key thing, isn't it? Councils have been spending the money on the LTNs and putting the wooden planters and the signs up, all the speed bumps and that, which, by the way, all cost an absolute fortune, because I don't know who their procurement is done by, but it's clearly someone who works at the council's cousin who's making the money. And then they get all this money back by fining people who break the rules. The cars that drive down the road, which is you're not allowed to drive down between 2:45 and 4:37 on a Monday to a Friday and things like that because of schools. And people break the rules completely unwittingly. No idea, the signs are unclear, complicated, they see them too late, and then councils are making a fortune. So the cunning thing about the government doing this, saying, look, you're not going to be able to fine motorists if you haven't got support for these measures. And we all know what measures people would support. 20-mile-per-hour zones around primary schools in particular, but secondary schools as well. Fair enough. Some like residential areas, fair enough. But the rest of it, can we all just learn how to cross the road properly and teach our children to do the same? Put your phone down and pay attention. And let us go about our daily business. Be able to park outside the shops on the high street so we can spend our money there. Be able to park near our homes and things like that. But the trouble is, councils have spent too long seeing us as the enemy, seeing us as cash cows, haven't they?
Yeah, well, the problem is that the public, decent people up and down the country, are now seen with contempt. They're seen as being sort of mad, bad, and dangerous. We're seen as being a problem that needs to be cleaned up, to be kept safe, to be told what to do. The good news is, Julia, that as well as the examples I've mentioned, that in Bath and Bristol and Oxford and up and down the country, people are challenging and fighting back. Some of them are standing in local elections, some of them are standing in nationals, independents. And this issue about freedom of mobility, to free our streets, to be consulted properly, to be engaged with transparency and honesty is critical. We're going to keep asserting it, the need to have our interests, our needs. And in a democratic society, that should be good news for everyone. Unfortunately, some of the people that are implementing these things want us to be quiet, go in the corner and do as we're told, and they call us all sorts of names, which now, to be honest, the public's getting really bored of.
I think you're far right, aren't you? Because you're standing up against something a local council does. The key thing about the Together Declaration, of which you're a founder member, is about when people stand together, we have more power, and make sure that our views are known. Fantastic work by you and everyone there. Thank you so much for joining us, Alan Miller.